Hello and welcome to UAS Magazine's biweekly podcast. I'm your host, Dayna Bastian. This year, the UAS Summit and Expo, coming up October 4th through the 5th in Grand Forks, North Dakota, is hosting its first ever Pitch Day on October 4th. We have been very grateful to collaborate with the UAS Angel Network to put on this event, which leads me to today's special guest, Craig Mahaney. Craig supports Development Capital Networks, DCN, as the Executive Director for the UAS Cluster Initiative and the UAS Angel Network. Welcome, Craig. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Dayna. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get to chat.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you on here. Prior to joining the DCN, you spent about 16 years at the FAA. Can you give our listeners a little bit more about your background and how you have come to help startups in the UAS industry find funding sources?
Yeah, sure. Happy to fill in the blanks a little bit. Interesting path to end up running the UAS Angel Network. I spent 16 years with FAA, and prior to that, I actually did a stint in the Navy, which is where I got my start in the aviation aerospace industry as an air traffic controller. During my time at FAA, I spent time both in air traffic management, doing some policy work down in DC at headquarters, and also did a short stint on Capitol Hill working in the Senate. So all that sort of led me to kind of delve into all the areas of UAS and how the new policies and new technologies are going to impact the aviation system as a whole. So back in January, I left FA and moved over to work for DCN, moved back to Oklahoma City. And that is kind of how I ended up managing the Angel Network along with all the other duties that I help run with the UAS Cluster Initiative.
Sounds like you've had quite an interesting path to where you've gotten, and we're excited to have you as a part of the UAS Angel Network. Can you share with us a little bit about what the mission and the vision is of the UAS Angel Network?
Sure, I can. I'll back up a little bit, and it's probably easier to start from where it began, which is really with the UAS Cluster Initiative, and what that is a Small Business Administration Regional Innovation Cluster, which DCN runs on a 5-year contract. And basically, our mandate is to build the unmanned aerial systems and advanced air mobility ecosystem. A lot of our focus is in the state of Oklahoma. However, through different networks, we've branched out North Dakota, New York, Texas, and some other states. We've been supporting them as well. And part of that contract and that regional innovation cluster was really to focus on helping startup founders, entrepreneurs figure out how to break into the industry, what sort of technologies needed to be developed, what were the challenges in the industry that needed to be tackled. So we do that through one of the areas that we focus on is access to capital for startups. So that's really where the UAS Angel Network was birthed. A lot of our network members are longtime angel investors themselves, and so they saw a need within sort of the capital environment for the sort of group that could convene angel groups and venture capital funds and bring folks together, investors together that had some experience in the industry. That's one of the challenges that a lot of the startup founders are facing is they're pitching to investors that really didn't understand the aerospace industry, the technology, the challenges, some of the regulatory challenges, FAA oversight challenges. So they really wanted to create a space for investors and startups to connect a little bit more efficiently. So that's kind of where the UAS Angel Network was birthed back in 2019. We took a short pause during COVID. We really ramped up operations beginning this year, January, February timeframe. We started bringing our core network together and kind of expanding that. And there's the UAS Cluster Initiative does some other things too. Like technology transfer, so those are the things we focus on, but the access to capital in the UAS Angel Network has been one space that's been growing pretty quickly and pretty organically, so we're happy about that.
That's great to hear. And how many angel investors are a part of the network, if you're able to share that?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about our angel network, it's a little bit different than some of the other traditional angel networks. Traditionally with an angel network, they come in all shapes and sizes, but oftentimes you see a group of, 5 to 10 angel investors who have known each other previously, maybe worked in similar industries, and they'll get together and they'll go in on deals together and sort of support each other, do the due diligence together, and sort of just provide that common interest, and rather than sort of a go it alone, which is a lot more risky. Our Angel Network's a little bit different. We see ourselves more as like a convener, and this kind of ties into the mission. We're really a convener of Angel Networks. So we reach out to other Angel Networks like the Houston Angel Network or an Angel Network in North Dakota that already is in existence but wants to find deals in the space specific to UAS and AAM. And we say, hey, why don't you partner with our angel group? We'll bring a bunch of angel groups together. We've got some venture capital, regional venture capital firms that like to hear deals, and they're also going to be a part of the network. So it's really a convener of groups of investors. So when I say how many in our network, I would say right now we probably have a core group of 7 to 9 groups. So not individuals, but these are groups of investors that are kind of a core group of our network, and that's growing every day. I would say we probably have double that number of investor groups, whether it's a venture capital fund or angel groups or individual angel investors who attend our pitch sessions. So that number of network usually doubles during a pitch session. And
wow.
We're also reaching out to a lot of the accelerators that focus on this industry and kind of forming partnerships with them. So they'll send an individual to sort of be a part of the network and be a part of the pitch session. So it's rapidly growing, expanding in what it looks like over time.
Which is a very good problem to have, right? When you're expanding rapidly, people are wanting to get in the industry. The UAS industry is a very unique industry. So it is exciting to see more people becoming a part of it as more laws and policies are being passed over time as well, and new innovative solutions are coming up for everything. So speaking of those innovative solutions, what type of companies do you typically see apply through the network? I know you have quite a few different avenues you can go within UAS.
Right. Yeah. So, right now we're seeing companies come to us from a couple different situations. So we'll have some companies that just, hear about us through the internet and see whether a LinkedIn site or through our website, and they'll apply to pitch that way. Sometimes we have companies that are referred to us through an accelerator or through another angel network. We've had a couple of instances where so the Genius New York program connected to up in Syracuse, connected closely with New Air. They run a pretty successful accelerator. Genius New York awards normally, I think it's 4 companies a year, pretty significant amount of money to go through their accelerator. So we've had quite a few companies come be referred to us through that group. We've had folks from other angel networks that they've invested in those companies say, hey, we know about this other UAS Angel Network, and this is a deal that we're currently actively investing in, so we want to share that with that network. So we get deals that way. And I would say the types of companies, we see the whole gamut. We have entrepreneurs and founders that come to us who are very, very early, probably just starting to work on a minimum viable product, looking for their first raise outside of their own money and their family's money. They're looking for their first angel. Accessing venture capital funds is probably still 3 to 5 years down the road. And then we see all the way up to folks raising their Series B. So they've been successfully raising. We have folks raising their Series A that come to us. So we see a pretty wide range. And I think the reason we do is because we haven't set a really specific investment philosophy on the types of deals we're seeing, because we want to make sure it's broad enough, because the industry's niche on its own and it's pretty small. So we don't want to refine like who can pitch. And our investors want to see a pretty broad variety of technologies and where the company is in sort of the raising process. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Again, it's really unique to see all of the different aspects, whether they're service providers, actually making different types of drones themselves, cargo UAVs. It's been really unique to see some of the new startups coming up here in the last couple of years that I've been a part of UAS Magazine. I kind of wanted to switch gears a little bit here, and you mentioned pitches in your last answer. So what makes for a good pitch?
Well, I mean, I think the way we operate our pitch sessions, they're, normally we give the the founder or co-founders about 7 to 8 minutes to pitch, and then we allow some time for questions, so 15 to 20 minutes max. So, what I found makes a good pitch is somebody who really understands what they're doing, what their product is, what their market is, what the size of their market is, and what the specific problem is they're trying to solve, and can clearly communicate that in about 3 or 4 minutes. And then they very quickly move into, okay, where here's the problem we're trying to solve. Here's why we can solve it better than anyone else. And then I think the other thing for me that makes a good pitch, and this is not just me, right? I spent most of my time on the operational side, not a lot of time listening to investors pitch. But I've got a group around me that's heard thousands of pitches. And so what they're sharing with me is we really want to see how a company can scale, right? So if they're saying that they need our investment, if they need our investment, why do they need it? Well, we need it because we need to scale rapidly, and we need a lot of money up front to do that. We can't wait for revenue, and years and years and years, we're going to lose market share. We need money now so we can expand rapidly. So prove to me why you need to do that, and if that's the actual case. And then the other thing is, I've heard this a couple of different times. How does the company go to $1 million in revenue, and then to 10 million, and then to 100 million, right? Because angel investors are taking on a lot of risk, including venture capital firms, and they understand for that risk, they're looking for a high reward. So they want a 20x or a 50x return on this investment. They're not looking for, 3 times their money or 2 times their money. They can get that with other less risky products. And so they're looking for big returns, and they know there's going to be some mostly failures, but they're looking for some big winners, and they want to see how you're going to get to $100 million in revenue. And so if a company can show that in 8 or 9 minutes, that's going to be a pretty successful pitch for them.
Awesome. And kind of on the flip side, what are some often mistakes that you see during a pitch?
Yeah, so when we do our pitch sessions, we normally we do a dry pitch with the investors beforehand to kind of walk through their pitch deck, even though we've probably already read through it, to see do they have good presentation skills? Are they reading the pitch deck? Sometimes we see founders that they may not have the best public speaking skills. Maybe they're a technical founder. They really love the technology, but they haven't had to pitch a lot. So effective public speaking is especially for an in-person pitch is really important. And I would say for a Zoom pitch session, it's even a little bit more important because you have a tendency to read the pitch. So I think one of the things I see a lot is folks wanting to read their pitch deck, which is not super effective. The other thing is the economics of their business. A lot of founders we find are really passionate about what they're doing, which is great, and they need to be. They spend a lot of time explaining why their technology is so great, why their business, how great their business model is, but they don't spend a lot of time explaining the economics of why someone would want to give them money and how this person is going to get their return on their investment, right? They may completely believe in the technology, but this is a risky investment. So they need to know that you have a plan for getting them a significant return. And the other thing I see a lot is companies not talking about what their exit strategy is. So once they build a company and they start to scale it, who are they going to sell this company to in order to get the return on investment that these investors are looking, right? So they want to know, who are their prospective buyers? Do they plan to do an IPO? How quickly do they plan to grow? So, and the other piece of that is, what's the clear ask when somebody's pitching to an investor? Here's my technology. Here's the market. What are you actually asking me for? How much money do you need? What's the money going to be used for? How do you plan to scale based on the amount of money? And then what am I getting for how much of the company are you offering to sell and at what rate? And, so the clear ask in the pitch deck is something that we normally have to push the founder for, because I think folks a lot of times are okay asking for money, but they don't like to put an actual number I'm going to sell 20% of my company at this valuation for this amount, and I'm going to do a convertible note or a safe round. They get into those details. You see that the more experienced folks pitching who've been through a really professional accelerator, who have pitched for a long period of time, they understand that that's what investors want to know. But somebody who hasn't been through that, they're not super comfortable with a clear ask, and we tell them, give them what you ask for. They may want to renegotiate it, but tell them up front what you expect for the amount of money they're giving. And I think that shows a level of professionalism that folks want to see.
Right, absolutely. And I think you make a lot of really good points too, especially as, you're seeing some people who have maybe been in the industry or have held very high levels of, DOD, government coming into the private sector, wanting to start these new innovations. So they do know kind of what people are expecting. But then there's also those technical people who have come in and had really great success, and they've have a groundbreaking product, but they just can't sell it. So do you also work with different companies, different people who are starting up to kind of prepare them for these pitches as well?
Yeah, we do. We like to say we want to be kind of fully involved in the whole life cycle. So one of the things that's important to us is, not just being a sort of a mill where we just see deal after deal after deal. Like I like to talk to the founders multiple times beforehand, and even if they don't end up getting selected to pitch, because we have a board of advisors that selects the companies to pitch. It's not just me making the selection. Even if they're not selected to pitch, or if they do pitch and they, aren't successful in finding investment, I still like to keep in contact with them, because what I've found is, as these companies, it's still early in this industry, as these companies do find some traction, find some customers, get a little, find an angel that's willing to invest, they may grow to a point to where it does make more sense for them to repitch and see some of the scale. We already have companies do that. Companies that pitched to us in March are already much further down in their capital raise, have new developments, and now our network may be more interested in hearing them pitch at this stage. So we like to be really involved. We like to help them prep we help them redo their pitch decks if we need to do that. So we do have limited time and resources, so we help as much as we can. And you mentioned earlier, it's like, oh, it's great to have all this growth. It is great, but we have a certain amount of resources, so we try to figure out where's the best value for where we're spending our time, whether it's helping founders prepare for pitches or it's helping, discover different companies to pitch. So it's a balancing act for sure.
Sure thing. And what advice would you give to companies who are currently preparing for a pitch?
I would say get as much feedback early on in the process. And if there are so many accelerators out there that don't necessarily take equity, because I know a lot of founders are concerned about, if I apply to go through an accelerator, they're going to take 5% of my company. I think sometimes they have trouble seeing the value in that. But if you go through a respectable accelerator, they're going to give you so many tools. They're going to help you build your pitch deck. They're going to help you network with investors. They're going to help you with, applying for SBIR funding. They're going to find, different funding sources that are non-dilutive, right? So no equity. So I would say just start reaching out to folks, reach out to other founders and find out, see if you can run your pitch by them. Get as much feedback as you can, and then also prepare to be told no a lot, right? So founders just got to get used to, the majority of people they talk to are not going to be interested, right? But it only takes one. And so, you got to be resilient. So I would say that just get used to sharing your pitch with as many people as possible, because the more you do it, the more natural it will feel to investors. So those are a couple pieces of advice I would give to folks preparing to pitch.
I think that is a great analogy, getting used to hearing the word no. I know in sales and fundraising, they kind of go hand in hand, right? So, I cannot remember off the top of my head what the number of asks typically is. I want to say it's usually at least 4 times. You have to hear the word no before you hear a word yes. So I think that's great advice. Well, thank you, Craig, for being a part of our podcast. We are nearing the end of our time here today. I like to end our podcast with a little bit of a fun question. So what is a success? What do you see from the Angel Network standpoint as being something that you've seen as successful, whether that's, growing the UAS Angel Network or a success story that's come through the UAS Angel Network?
Yeah, no, happy to share. I think that where we are kind of in the process of growing the Angel Network and kind of really getting fully established in January, we've seen success from the standpoint of just immediate interest from not only the investors, but from the companies, the startups. I think, we do our best to get word out about what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. And, very quickly, there's just been, a ton of companies that have reached out wanting to apply, wanting to find out more about us. And I would say one of our success stories has been, using a small staff and sort of a limited budget and being able to utilize our network effectively. So, we've gotten pretty busy pretty quickly. Made a lot of really good connections with, like I said, with some pretty big accelerators, some pretty large angel networks. I attribute most of that success to just the folks that I work with and their existing networks, just letting them know what we're doing. And we have had, a couple of companies that have pitched that are in, additional conversations with investment groups, talking about going through due diligence process. And so it's still a little bit early to kind of share specific success stories since they're still going through that process. But I'm hoping by the end of the year, we'll have some like specific examples of, hey, here's a couple companies that came through and they found funding. And not just what I find valuable for these companies, and I talk to these founders about it, is you may come and pitch to our group and maybe you get one investor that's immediately interested, but we don't stop the process there. We've had multiple companies that have pitched our investor network, and our board of advisors or me think, hey, this company's got a really strong product. There's a really strong business model concept. They need a little bit more time to grow, and we'll continually share this company with other networks. So if I meet a venture capital firm, I'll say, hey, this might be a good fit. Let me set up a meeting with you two, and then you guys. And even if they don't get an investment, they learn a lot from that interaction. The VC firm will share some points that they need to, be a little bit more clear about, or where there's a gap that they'll need to find. So I think we've been really successful, and I'm proud of, like, we don't just see deals and say yes or no. Like, we see deals and like we continue that relationship, whether it's for years until that company gets to a position where they don't need investor funding anymore. They've got revenue to support that. So I'm excited about that part of it, and excited that I'm able to keep my head above water considering my limited experience in the investor and angel and VC world. I've been learning a ton. And so I consider just the fact that I've lasted this long as a semi-success story.
Well, I'm a little biased because I've been having the pleasure of working with you for the past few months, Craig. So I think you're doing a great job. And if any of our listeners here today are looking for funding, looking to get connected to the UAS Angel Network, check out their website online, reach out to Craig. They will be a great asset for you. So thanks again, Craig. We do want to really thank you for your time today, jumping on our podcast.
Yeah, I was glad you invited me, and I'm looking forward to the UAS Summit next month. It'll be really interesting to see some good companies pitch in person. We'll be running that in person and virtual. We'll have our own investor network join in. A lot of those folks will be joining via Zoom, but we'll have a good group of folks in person. So I'm excited to see how that all plays out.
We're excited to see how it all plays out as well. And to our listeners, be sure to join us for the UAS Summit and Expo coming up October 4th through the 5th in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And check out Craig's contributing article in the upcoming issue of UAS Magazine as well. Thank you for listening. Until next time.